sing the song. Which song? What you say, brother?
So anytime that you monkeying around with anything, that will gain control of your body, which means that alcohol can do that, the so-called heroin can do that. Then of course you're asking for trouble, because you know you're not your own keeper, and I think it's very, very bad.
What really happened when Ray Charles passed away 21 years ago? Was there more to his story than we first knew? Why is his family speaking out now after all this time? Did they finally confirm the rumors people have talked about for years? What new truths are they sharing about his life, career, and final days? Let's uncover the surprising details about this music legend.
I've been trying to fool around with music ever since I was about 3. I would always make my music teacher angry at me because I'd be adding stuff that don't go with the music.
Ray had a tough start in life. Born on September 23, 1930, in Albany, Georgia, to Bailey Robinson and Aretha Williams. His father wasn't around much when Ray was young, and he eventually left the family. So it was just Ray, his mother Aretha, and his younger brother George.
I was born in the South, and there were two things that you always knew. You knew who you were, and you knew where you belonged. As long as you knew who you were and didn't get in anybody's way, you could sort of get along there.
Ray later shared in his 1978 autobiography, Brother Ray, Ray Charles' own story, that his father wasn't much of a presence in his life. Ray said, "The old man wasn't part of my life. He was hardly around." This left Ray and his mother to face life together. Ray and George were very close, even though George was just a year younger. Ray remembered his brother as a very smart boy, able to do math at a young age. By 3 years old, George could add, multiply, and divide, and the neighbors were amazed by his talents. Despite their struggles with a missing father, Ray's early childhood had many happy moments. He remembered finding joy in the small things, like sparking matches at night. However, when Ray was just 5 years old, a terrible accident changed his life forever. One day, Ray and George were playing outside when little George fell into a large metal tub filled with soapy water that their mother used to wash clothes. George couldn't get out, and Ray couldn't help him. He ran to get his mother, but by the time she reached him, George had drowned. Ray was devastated by the loss of his brother, and it was a tragedy that stayed with him for the rest of his life.
See, I used to do almost everything any other kid did. I used to wash dishes, scrub the floors, cut wood with an axe. My mom would always tell me, well, you know, son, one of these days I'm not going to be with you, you know, I'm going to die or something. And you're going to have to learn how to do things for yourself.
Around the same time, Ray began to lose his eyesight. By the age of 7, he was completely blind. The cause of his blindness was believed to be glaucoma, a condition that causes damage to the eyes. Ray's family, who lived in the poor, segregated South, couldn't afford the medical care needed to treat it. Many other African Americans during that time, living in similar conditions, also went blind for the same reasons. Even famous musicians like Blind Lemon Jefferson and Blind Tom Wiggins suffered from blindness, which was seen as a part of their story and the image of their music. Despite losing his sight, Ray's mother, Aretha, never let him feel sorry for himself. She would tell him, "You're blind, you ain't dumb. You lost your sight, not your mind." Aretha didn't want Ray to use his blindness as an excuse. Ray didn't follow the usual path for blind musicians, like playing the guitar, because he didn't want to be seen as helpless or pitied. He listened to his mother's advice and refused to let his blindness hold him back.
You're completely lost as a child in a wilderness, and it's thunder and lightning, and you don't know what to do with yourself. And the blues is the blues, baby.
Early in his career, Charles faced a lot of challenges, especially with promoters trying to cheat him. But he found a clever way to make sure he wasn't ripped off. Charles insisted on being paid only in $1 bills. This wasn't about being picky. It was about protecting himself. Promoters couldn't slip him a smaller amount and pretend it was a bigger bill, like a 20. Ray would personally count every single dollar to make sure he got exactly what he earned. This simple but smart habit helped him avoid being cheated, especially when he wasn't yet a big star.
I was new in town. I didn't know anybody. And, when you walk into new territory, you pay attention. At least that's the way it was when I was coming up. Maybe it's a little different nowadays.
As his music career grew in the 1950s, Ray Charles made another smart move. He negotiated a deal that let him own his own recordings. This was a big deal at the time because most artists didn't own their music. Many singers and bands struggled for years trying to get fair money for their work. But Ray's deal meant he earned money directly from every record sold. It set him apart and gave him financial security that many of his peers could only dream of.
And the song,
Even though Ray Charles became very successful, he didn't get as rich as some white artists of his time. In 1987, during an interview on 60 Minutes, he was asked if he felt he made as much money as the biggest stars. Ray's answer was wise and humble. "No, obviously I haven't, and won't," he said. Then he explained why it didn't bother him. "I can't eat but one meal a day. I can't make love but to one woman at a time. So when you get right down to it, man, you can have 15 islands, 13 cars, or 10 airplanes. But what does it all mean? I'm comfortable, and I like that." This response shows the kind of man Ray Charles was. He understood that life isn't just about having more money or things. He was happy with what he had, and he valued the things that really mattered. His relationships with backup singers, notably Margie Hendricks, was complex and sometimes tumultuous, affecting both his personal and professional life. Margie was more than just a backup singer. She was one of the original Raylettes, the women who gave Ray Charles's songs their soul and energy. Margie Hendrix's life was both amazing and heartbreaking. Before joining Ray Charles, she was a member of a group called the Cookies. When Ray took over the group in the 1950s and renamed them the Raylettes, Margie became one of his standout singers. She had a voice that could shake a room, strong, sassy, and unforgettable. One of Margie's most famous moments came with the song "Hit the Road Jack." She sang it with Ray, and their voices together created magic.
what you say, no.
But Margie wasn't just his singing partner. She was also his lover. They had a child together, a son named Charles Wayne, born in the early 1960s. Their relationship was passionate but difficult. Margie was known for speaking her mind, and she didn't hold back, even with Ray. Unfortunately, their love and work relationship didn't last. Margie was fired from the Raylettes in 1964. Some say it was because of personal issues, including arguments and struggles with addiction. After leaving Ray, Margie continued to make music. Despite her talent, Margie's career never reached the heights it deserved. She passed away in 1973 at just 38 years old. To this day, there's confusion about how she died. Some say it was a drug overdose. Others believe it was cancer or a car accident. The truth is still a mystery. What about her son, Charles Wayne? Unfortunately, there's almost no information about him. Even in Ray Charles' biography by Michael Lydon, Charles Wayne is only briefly mentioned. Is he still alive? What was his life like? These questions remain unanswered.
Lonesome.
Ray was famous for mixing different kinds of music, especially gospel and blues. Gospel music is a type of church music that is full of emotion and joy, while blues is a sadder, slower kind of music. Ray Charles combined these two genres in a way no one had done before. In his early years, Charles grew up listening to gospel music in church. It was a big part of his life, and it made him feel something deep inside. But when he started making his own music, he wanted to do something different. He took the emotion of gospel and added it to the rhythm and feeling of blues. This combination made his music sound unique and exciting.
That's why some people call it Stormy Monday.
However, not everyone liked what Ray Charles was doing. Many traditional gospel singers did not approve of his mix of gospel and blues. They thought it was wrong to mix the two genres. They believed gospel music should stay pure and only be used for church and worship. Ray Charles's music, with its bluesy feel and soulful sound, seemed too much like pop or secular music for some gospel fans. Despite the controversy, Ray Charles kept doing his thing. He believed in the power of music to speak to people, no matter where it came from. Songs like I Got a Woman and What Did I Say became huge hits and showed the world how powerful mixing genres could be.
When you see me in misery, come over, baby, see about me now.
Ray Charles' song, What Did I Say, is one of the most famous tracks in music history. It was even listed as the 10th best song of all time by Rolling Stone. The song made Ray Charles a pop star after years of success in R&B. But it didn't come easy. The story behind the song is interesting. Ray Charles created What Did I Say on the spot during a concert. He was trying to fill the last few minutes of his show and started playing some new music that the crowd really loved. After seeing how excited the audience was, he told his label at Atlantic Records, "I'm playing a song out here on the road, and I don't know what it is, but the people are just going wild every time we play it, and I think we ought to record it." When the song was released, it caused some trouble. Some radio stations didn't want to play it because they thought the song had some risky messages in the lyrics. Even some black radio stations were upset because they felt the song mixed gospel music with more secular or worldly themes. Despite the controversy, young people loved it, and What Did I Say quickly climbed up the charts. This song helped Ray Charles become a huge pop star. It was released just as his contract with Atlantic was ending, and within 6 months, he signed a better deal with ABC Records. What Did I Say didn't just make him famous, it changed the direction of his career forever. In 1981, Charles made a bold decision. He performed at the Sun City Resort in South Africa, a country known for its system of apartheid. Apartheid was a time when black and white people were separated, and black people were treated very badly. During this period, many countries around the world were boycotting South Africa to protest the unfair treatment of black people. Ray Charles was one of the big names to perform at Sun City, despite the boycott. His decision caused a lot of backlash. People felt that by performing there, Charles was supporting the apartheid government. Many famous artists, like Bruce Springsteen and Stevie Wonder, refused to play in South Africa during this time. They wanted to stand with the people fighting against the racism in the country. Ray Charles, however, had his reasons. He claimed that he was there to perform for the people, not the government. He believed music could bring people together and didn't want to mix politics with his art. He even said that he didn't know much about the boycott when he agreed to perform, and he just wanted to do what he loved. But his decision didn't come without consequences. After the concert, there was a lot of criticism. Some fans were disappointed, and many people believed he should have supported the boycott. Looking back, it's clear that his performance was a complicated moment in his career. Ray Charles stood by his choice, but it remains a controversial chapter in his life.
I read Ray Charles at the Eagles at the Elks Club on Jackson Street in Seattle. We'd work all the clubs, 3 nightclubs a night when I was 13. And we'd go down to Elks Club to play bebop, jazz for nothing. Because we didn't care about money or fame at all.
Now, in a surprising and honest story, Quincy shared how his close friend Ray Charles got him into drugs when they were young. If you've seen Quincy's Netflix documentary or know his life story, you'll know he and Ray Charles were best friends. But their friendship had a dark side. When Quincy was just 15 years old, he and Ray were touring and playing music together. During a recent interview on the Hollywood Reporters Awards Chatter podcast, Quincy shared how it all started. After performing at places like the Washington Social Club, they would head to Jackson Street and visit the Elks Club. That was the spot where musicians gathered for jam sessions. Quincy explained, "Nobody got paid. We didn't care about the money. When the playing was done, they'd go to the corner and use heroin. I just sneaked into the line and tried it." That one decision changed Quincy's life. For a while, he didn't realize he was addicted. It wasn't until he had a scary accident, falling down a flight of stairs, that things became clear. Quincy ended up on bed rest, unable to move much. That's when he realized how much the drug had taken over his life. He admitted, "If I hadn't fallen, I probably would have kept using heroin. I would have moved to New York, where I was hanging out with jazz musicians like Charlie Parker." Bird Parker's nickname was always High. Thank God we did it and got it over with. Quincy says that mistake taught him an important lesson. The mistakes are what help you grow and learn, he said, and he's thankful he stopped before it ruined his life.
So anytime that you monkeying around with anything, that will gain control of your body, which means that alcohol can do that, the so-called heroin can do that. Then, of course, you're asking for trouble because you know you're not your own keeper, and I think it's very, very bad.
Charles started using drugs when he was very young. In 1961, Jet magazine reported that after an arrest, police found marijuana, a syringe, and heroin on him. Charles admitted he had been using drugs since he was just 16 years old. In the early days of his career, promoters who helped with his performances gave him marijuana to calm his nerves. But soon, marijuana wasn't enough. Charles started using heroin, and it became a problem that lasted for many years. He spent over 15 years struggling with this addiction. At one point, he was arrested again. But instead of going to jail, he entered rehab. There was also a deeper reason behind his drug use. According to Black Doctor, Charles had nightmares after he witnessed his brother's tragic drowning. Drugs helped him escape the painful memories. In 1966, after getting clean and leaving rehab, Ray Charles turned his life around. He channeled his experiences into his music, recording songs like Let's Go Get Stoned, and I Don't Need No Doctor.
My prescription to be filled.
His album Crying Time was created to share his journey through addiction and recovery. After leaving rehab for the first time since his early teens, Ray Charles was no longer a drug addict. While this would be celebrated in most regards, another equally damaging vice took hold of Charles in the form of alcohol. While he ended his use of drugs following his stint in rehab in the mid-1960s, Charles continued to drink gin and smoke marijuana until his death. Slate reports that when Charles was working on his autobiography, he said, "Just like smack never got in the way of my working, same goes for booze and reefer. What I do with my own body is my own business." Charles would regret this arrogant declaration toward the end of his life, when his years of alcohol use finally caught up with him. In 2003, he was diagnosed with alcoholic liver disease and hepatitis C. The 73-year-old musician said, "If I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself."
I didn't commit myself to cure myself. I went to a hospital because it was the right thing for me to do under the circumstances. No, I had a made-up mind.
Dr. Merkin details how Ray Charles's drug and alcohol use led to illness later in life. The liver is the only organ with the enzymes to break down alcohol, meaning excessive alcohol puts a strain on the liver. The liver also breaks down recreational and prescription drugs. The combination of many partners and excessive drug and alcohol use throughout his life led to Charles's body suffering greatly in his later years.
You sing about the woman, but you're really also talking about all the kicking around that you've had, the amount of humiliation that you've known, and all the put downs that you've had, the throwing out doors that you've had, the hunger that you've had.
Ray passed away on June 10th, 2004, at the age of 73. He was known for hits like Hit the Road Jack, Unchain My Heart, and One Mint Julep, and he had a style all his own that influenced many artists. Charles died after struggling with liver failure at his home in Los Angeles. Before his passing, he had been dealing with some health problems, including complications from hip surgery in 2003. Despite these struggles, Charles was still active in music and was planning to tour again. He loved performing, and he once said, "I'm going to keep touring, keep performing, it's in my blood." He believed that as long as he could, he would continue doing what he loved. "I ain't gonna live forever, but I know it's not about how long I live, it's about how well I live," he said in an interview. Ray Charles's funeral was a reflection of the kind of life he led, full of respect and admiration from his peers. Music legends like B.B. King, Stevie Wonder, Glenn Campbell, and Wynton Marsalis came together on June 18, 2004, at the First African Methodist Episcopal Church in Los Angeles to honor him with music. It was a celebration of his incredible life and career. Even after his death, Ray Charles's music lived on. His final album, Genius Loves Company, was released in August 2004. The album featured Ray Charles singing with artists from different genres, including Elton John, Willie Nelson, James Taylor, Gladys Knight, and Natalie Cole. They sang famous Ray Charles songs and some of their own. One of the most touching moments was his cover of Over the Rainbow with Johnny Mathis, which was played at his funeral. The album was a huge success, topping the Billboard 200 chart and winning 5 Grammy Awards in 2005. It won Album of the Year, Record of the Year, Best Pop Collaboration with Vocals, Best Pop Vocal Album, and Best Gospel Performance. Ray Charles' music continued to reach hearts all over the world, reminding everyone of the incredible talent and influence he had in the music industry.
To me, it was Black America with this music saying, you think you know me, you think I'm just this happy guy singing my songs and nodding my head and doing all my moves. You think you know me, but you don't know me.
When he passed away, his music was remembered by artists like Aretha Franklin, Willie Nelson, and Billy Joel, who all paid tribute to him. Franklin called him the voice of a lifetime, and Bruce Hornsby shared how Charles, even in his last performance, still amazed the crowd. He might have been helped to the piano, but once he started singing, it was clear that he was still the star. However, despite all the love and respect that Ray Charles earned, there was drama after his death regarding his money. Ray Charles was worth around $75 million when he passed away. Before he died, he had spoken with his children about his will. He made an agreement with them where each of his children would get $500,000. In exchange, they had to promise not to make any legal claims on his estate or property. But things didn't go as planned. In 2012, Ray Charles's estate filed a lawsuit against 7 of his children. The estate claimed that these children had broken the agreement by sending legal notices to music publishers. These notices were asking to change the ownership of Ray Charles's music. This led to a legal battle that lasted for years. In 2015, the estate won the case, which meant that Ray's children were not allowed to claim any more rights to their father's music or estate. This legal mess came after a major disaster for the music industry. In June 2008, a fire at Universal Studios in Los Angeles destroyed over 500,000 master recordings, including some of Ray Charles's work. These lost recordings meant that some of his music could no longer be used in the same way. Despite all the money Ray Charles earned through his music, his children ended up in a legal battle over his fortune. Even though Ray had made a deal with them, it didn't stop the lawsuit from happening. The story of Ray Charles's estate shows how money and family can sometimes lead to trouble, even after someone has passed away.